Hello and welcome. Good to see you, Kelly.
You too, Margit.
I appreciate you being willing to do the Queen interview. And I'm thrilled to have you. You're one of my favorite people in terms of working on this inner work and how it bridges with the world and just your bright light and spirit. It's great to see you.
Mm.
And just for the audience, Kelly is, I met Kelly in 2020, probably tail end of 2020. And in 2021, she was part of my Awakening Leadership Lab. And at that time had two young kids, and now they're 9 and 11. So you're actively a mother, although they're starting to fledge a little bit. And Kelly's a natural born leader. She didn't need my leadership lab to figure it out. That just kind of helped her blossom naturally into her gifts in that way, and has had various management level responsibilities. She's still the board chair of the school that her kids attend to, and managing all sorts of challenging issues that come up in that context, as well as executive coaching and group facilitation. So, pretty potent skill set. And the reason I wanted you to meet Kelly is that normally I tend to look at women in midlife, like perimenopausal and very post motherhood, entering into the unraveling process that leads into becoming a queen. But Kelly, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your spiritual journey and how you are a young bloomer and how that fits in terms of mothering and awakening. So,
Thank you so much, Margit.
mm,
Yeah, I started, I feel at a pretty young age, having experiences that I was not able to process what was happening. And they were mystical experiences, out of body experiences. And I didn't really have a mentor or a person in my life who could help me process them. And I went on kind of a journey, just deep into life. I went away to college and really in the midst of college started studying, modern day spiritual teachers to understand, what was happening to me and why I was so interested in um, what was really happening here. It was very important to me to understand that. And I was not really getting very many answers from the modern kind of upbringing, religious upbringing that I was
mm,
born into, and I, just finally, went through a pretty, wild kind of 20s and came into being a mother in my early 30s. And once I became a mother, it was at that point actually very important to me to change the way I was living my life and to understand the truer, deeper reality that is here.
tell me a little
Um,
bit about what needed to change. What was not working, and what did you see at that point?
just feeling so unfulfilled with the daily life. I didn't really have um, a passion or a hobby or a career or anything that was really meaningful for me. And ultimately, I think what I really was spiritually deprived,
Mm,
highly conditioned to be in patterns that were not helpful for me. And I just knew that I did not want to live like that and that I couldn't be a good mother
mm,
if I did. And so actually from when I had very young children, I was fortunate enough to be able to be with my children at home And so I really devoted any extra time I had while they were very, very young to studying non-duality and any kind of spiritual information that I could get my hands on. And I was in the midst of motherhood, and it was very, very challenging, alone, really understanding the troubles that mothers go through these days. We're not really in community, felt very alone. Right. And just was really looking for a way to deal with all of that and to be able to step into a way that I really knew I could be proud of in raising my kids. How would I raise them spiritually? Spirituality was always the number one most important thing for me, yet it wasn't in my life in a way that I really wanted it to be at all. So there was a gap, a big gap in what I saw as being my vision for my life and how to raise children and how to be a leader for my family and how to be in a relationship with my husband and my children and how to find community. It wasn't there in the way that I wanted it to be. And so I started studying and ultimately, found a teacher who helped me to see that I needed to come into the embodiment aspect of it, rather than ultimately in some way I was trying to escape the complexity of the world through the transcendent, because that was what I was studying, was really kind of these understanding the profound truth of this reality was in some ways an escape from my own humanity. And I started to do that deeper embodiment work when my kids were very little. But I was, I think there's so many different kinds of awakening. I was awakening to the profound spiritual reality of the truth of this existence. And I also was awakening to the truth of social injustice and oppression around the same time. And so that was a challenge for me because I felt a deep sense of urgency to do something about that. And yet I hadn't done a lot of that therapeutic, deeper healing work that was needed to be, to drive that in an effective way. And all other kinds of awakenings started to happen too. I started to understand what my true limitations were as a human, some of my gifts were that I was not aware of. And so it all happened at the same time for me. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing, Margit, because I think that spiral that you talk about has been very helpful for me to understand what happened, because I had to keep going back to old concepts that I had done much, much earlier on, and in order to meet them with a higher level of complexity. And it's confusing at the time, though, when you're going through that, because you think, am I not where I think I should be?
I thought I was done with this.
Backward, yeah. Am I ever going to make it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I think it was unsustainable. What was happening was not sustainable because, I think I think doing that, awakening to that deeper therapeutic work where I really started to understand the parts that are living inside of me and really taking the time. I didn't really have that time when my kids were younger. That for me, that took a lot of time, like literally sitting down, talking to those places, and meeting them and doing a lot of that work.
Can I
I
ask,
think. Yeah.
how did you have a sense, what was not sustainable? What in particular was not sustainable? Yeah.
I just was still living in patterns that were not driving I had such a, I wanted to be a good person socially. And I wanted to be seen as a good person as far as my social justice work went. And I wanted to be seen as a spiritual person, somebody who understands these deeper things. So for me, I kept driving that part of me that was so afraid of not being worthy was driving
Mm.
those two things, really. Even though there is truth to the awakening, I woke up to the truth of those realities.
Yeah.
It wasn't landing in a deeper way, because ultimately those parts that were feeling not good enough were driving a lot of that, those patterns that were still needing to be seen, rather than now. I think that ultimately when I truly go in and do that work, the only thing left to do is to serve. That ends
Mm.
up always being the case, or create, to offer love. And that you don't always know what that looks like or how people are going to receive that. And I think that that was not what was happening. I
So you
was
had an
really.
idea of what you wanted to be and how you wanted to be and how you wanted to be perceived.
Mm-hmm.
And what was underneath it was some sense of, I've got to prove myself, whatever, fill
Yeah.
in the
And
blanks. And then there's something
exactly.
about that thrust to have to prove yourself that you realize is unsustainable. I just can't keep pushing like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's part of the coming down, right, into the body.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There was just no way. It was just, and I couldn't meet the complexity.
Mm.
So I was still trying to escape it because I couldn't really sit with it. And I
Wow.
hadn't done that work around what it really means to be still within myself, how to really be honest about that. And every single time I would ask these big questions: what should I do for a living? How can I help the world and be there? How do I help my children? How do I share my creative gifts? These big questions, always asking them, right? There's some kind of impulse to constantly be trying to live the best life, and that it would always be the same thing. The answers would always be the same, and they would always be the same for any question I would ask, right? Like, relax, slow down, feel, trust, allow.
Mm.
Because I was doing a lot of things, doing a lot of things.
And I bet you were doing a lot of things really well.
I felt very successful in a lot of ways,
Mm.
you know? And so, yeah, it was just like, I wasn't getting the answer. I wasn't getting the answer I wanted, which was, oh, here's your exact direction.
Mm.
Here's the strategic plan for your life, right?
Mm. You want that printout? Just tell me and I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't happening like that. And so I think that helped. Ultimately, the more that I could step in and do that work, which for me and my conditioning was very courageous work, to be able to just come into that stillness, meet people relationally there. My conditioning was, that is not a safe place to be.
It's a big act of courage to stop, slow down, go into stillness, and be with the reality of your experience
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yeah,
reality of the world, right?
exactly. And because for me, it felt like, well, if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? Right? Who's going to fix all these major problems that I see?
So you
So there
can't.
was such an incredible sense of urgency,
Mhm.
and you have to do it now. There's no time to slow down. Right. So it's very overwhelming. That
So
was what was.
how did that start shifting for you? That urgency, it's got to be done. If I don't do it, who's going to do it?
I think I saw the pattern very clearly. So that
Mm.
became yeah, the pattern became so clear that that wasn't helpful.
Uh-huh.
And that was not helping my children, that they needed something else than somebody to fix things. The world needs something else other than me to fix the world. That's not
Mm.
what it needs.
That's
And
a
also that, well, they're good for me because then I won't have to live in that way anymore.
that's a huge reckoning, right? Because the
Mhm.
whole, mechanistic worldview that we're immersed in is do it harder, do it smarter, do it right, and we'll get it done, right? You just keep hammering away at it. And so just and if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, right? So then you go into the not only mechanistic, but the sort of the activist world is, someone's suffering and you're in the privilege of, your whatever levels of privilege you're luxuriating and you have no excuse,
Mhm.
right? So that there's a lot
Exactly.
of pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And those things kept exponentially getting more intense from my experience, right? Like AI is coming, technology is advancing, things are getting faster, there's ways you can do things quicker, the suffering feels more intense. Felt like that, at least, right? It feels like that more people are suffering, more terrible things are happening.
Yeah.
And so I think actually that's what becomes so, that the intensity of that is what then you say, oh wow, I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm never going to be able to match that kind of complexity and that kind of pace. There has to be another way. I have to do something different here.
Do you have a sense of when that recognition happened for you? Was that recently or a few years ago?
I mean, I think in some way that's why I appreciate the spiral, because I think in some way I have been going back to that, but definitely very recently, like over the past year, I think it's just been so clear that I'm not going to be able to meet it in that way. This little human is not going to be able to understand all of these levels of complexity, even within myself, right? Even doing the internal work, I'm not going to be able to go back and understand every single thing that I have gone through, you know? Um, and so, and it has felt um, really comforting and relieving to say, I'm not going to be able to do that. I don't have to carry that weight.
Mm.
It's okay for my children to go through their own process. It's okay for the world to go through the world's own process. And there's going to be another way that I can serve here and offer myself. And it is going to be from that lesson that kept coming up: relax, trust,
Mm.
slow down. It just became so clear.
So there's no guilt. There's just the I keep wanting to say the reckoning. There's sort of this reckoning with reality of I can't fix the world. No one person can, and government can. It's too complex. It's too big. So then what's left? What's left is surrender. And you're it sounds like you're landing in it in a way that has you've uncoupled from the guilt and worthiness game.
Yeah, I think that a lot of my activism work, a lot of that work around social justice and fighting against oppression was driven by that kind of guilt before. I need to do this because this is what will make me be a good person, and is what will make me be seen as a good person. And I think it has shifted because I realized that that was unsustainable and it was not effective. And it is true. I think that it is true that I would have been so privileged to do this work, right? That I have the time and the energy to be able to do this spiritual, psychological, healing work, to be able to be educated and take time to educate myself. I'm highly privileged in that way. And that was a hard thing for me to reckon with, because there did feel like you have to do something.
Yeah.
And I think it is true for me that you know, I think that's where the clarity does come in, though, that I don't want to live my life only serving privileged people. I think that could be a mistake. And so it's like, well, then I'm opening up to that. Allow me to be able to see how I can use my privilege to serve in a way that is actively supporting dismantling these systems that are, because those things are they're inextricably tied. For me, and that was an interesting lesson for me to learn. I don't know that that's true for everybody, but for me to go on that path of transcendence and to be a spiritual person, for me, all of that deep inner work is inextricably tied to the social justice work.
Mm.
There's absolutely no way that I can uncouple them. And it's so important for me to be open to that, and to not be driving that initiative from a place of fear and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so doing that work, I think has opened up my eyes in a lot of ways that I didn't understand before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is all happening while you have young kids are going to school and you're developing your professional life, and yet there's this big inner work and realizations happening pretty simultaneously as you're doing this engagement with the board and your jobs. You're coming up against the way in which you're trying to prove yourself and doing the inner work to unravel that pattern. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about how you orient towards this. So if you look at maiden, mother, queen, crone, just that very simplistic model,
Mm-hmm.
how would you see or understand yourself in the context of that model, your motherhood and then the queenhood, and where you're at with that? What's your understanding of it for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that my kids are more independent now. And so there's so much more room for me to have time to understand, and I'm very supported. Um, and so there's so much room, I think, for me to take the time and the energy that it takes to move towards what is most meaningful and fulfilling for me in life. And it was not, even though I was doing work before, as a mother, like meaning I was doing the internal work and I was studying and I was trying to be an active participant, active citizen. I think I'm coming into just a way of feeling into the preciousness of this life, and the that there's no more time to waste. Like I have no more time to waste continuing to stay in these patterns and continuing to just push myself towards trying to appear like I'm worthy. I just want to bow down and say, let me be used as somebody who can serve towards the collective liberation of everyone. And I'm at a point where I'm very open to what that looks like.
You don't have a plan.
It can feel unsettling because you really don't know. I think before I was like, it was very important for me. 5-year plan, 2-year plan, 10-year plan. Where am I going? What is this going to look like? And, over the past 6 months to a year, I think I could really resonate with what that means. I don't think I could have over a year ago what it looks like to be into that next phase after motherhood, because I was so focused on that, and I still am a mother, but it's different. Yeah, it feels different.
You're feeling like it's a new phase.
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. It just feels like I'm not going to go on in that way anymore. And I don't know what the new way looks like exactly, but I'm not going to continue to go on in that way that felt so unsustainable, because I had to control everything. And I had to meet this level of complexity in a way that I was never going to be able to meet it. And so you have to say, okay, I put my weapons down. I had to say that I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that's quite a visual, putting down the sword. That's such a vivid image. Thank you for that. And you said offline that you had your company shifted things and your position was released, and how that fit into this place for you.
Yeah, I think for whatever reason, sometimes hard transitions in life that can bring so much grief, and unsettling changes can prompt me to say, what do I really want here? Am I really going to continue down a path that I could justify, right? I could justify, oh, I'm building skills here and I'm making money.
Like the leadership management track kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Being in the world in that way. Is it really a good use of my time? Am I really being honest with myself here about my truth and what is true for me? And that's what, that's what happened, and so there's an incredible amount of trust and courage that it takes, because we're humans and we have to live and be able to provide for our families, and we have to be able to make decisions. But I think that I'm in a place that I haven't been at before because I've been able to access the stillness, I think, in a way that I haven't before.
Mm.
So there isn't a sense of urgency
Mm.
like there used to be with that. And again, I'm privileged and I'm supported. So I think that's not true for everyone, and that won't ever be true for everybody that they have even that opportunity. But I think it's allowed me to step into a different way of relating to everything, even that I don't have to force my purpose right now. Before I still cared about purpose and meaning. There was just such an urgent desire.
Mm.
And now I think it's actually slowing down so I can feel into what is the right next thing. What is really the right next thing that is going to align deeply with me and feel fulfilling and like actually put me on the path where I see the most impactful vision for myself and my family and my future and the world.
So I'm struck by this quality of sensing in the moment how you're moved to move, which is a different uh, way of being than having an idea and mapping it out and using our willpower and strength and to get from A to B. This is a completely different operating system, if you will, and and um, another image that comes is a trapeze. So we're swinging on one, and you let go and you're midair before you catch the bar and swing over. And it sounds to me, I don't know if that resonates for you, that you're sort of in midair. You're letting go of the old identities, the roles that don't fit, the drivers that are not sustainable and they're based on fear and conditioning. So I sense sort of this quality of nakedness, of
Mm.
here I am and I don't know what's going to happen and what's going to unfold, and the urgency is gone. So I imagine it's a little disorienting.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's taken me such an incredible amount of courage every single day because the conditioning is so deep around trying to figure it out and making sure that I get it right.
Uh-huh.
So to so to settle into that, again and again, as many times as you possibly can, that you're just kind of, okay, remember that what the message is to soften right now.
Yeah.
What the message is to soften and to just kind of go slower and actually feel that it feels. I have to keep reminding myself that the other way didn't work. That way did not work. Because the urge, and I could see it come up, right? There's those lingering thought patterns and feelings that are still related to that, and they come up. And it feels uncomfortable, but in some way it also feels comforting because you're like, oh yeah, that's the familiar pattern. Go do that. It's going to be safe.
Right.
And when I slow down, the answer just is always the same right now.
Which is
and that's
which is to
and,
soften or
and that's to keep slowing down, which is interesting. It's like, and so it's like you're in that moment of you're not going to get what that part wants, right? I mean, all I've been desiring, direction, clarity, please just let me know, give me the answers.
yeah.
And it's like, just keep. And so, those lessons or that information has been coming for a long time. I just wasn't listening. I
And
wasn't
now
really
you have no
following.
choice but to listen, right?
That's what it is. That's what it is. And
Yeah.
it's always the same. Slow down, listen, and then act.
Hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. It's been 2012 since my awakening, embodied awakening. So what is that? 13, 14 years,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And there's still more unwinding to do. There's still more sneaky, subtle levels of conditioning that try to grab the steering wheel. And I don't even notice that they're
Mhm.
happening until I hit that wall. And it's like, okay, yeah, there's that. I need to, there's
Yeah.
some stuff that I'm doing in my business right now. I'm trying to figure it out. And for those of us like you, me, those of us who are really gifted with a mind, we've leveraged our intelligence to get us, for our own success and for our survival. But that mind and that intelligence, that's not its role to figure out what we're here to do. It's not its role.
No.
And so I've been struggling with this particular issue. And even this morning, hitting my head against the wall again, feeling that frustration,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
sitting with it, saying, oh, okay, letting that come home, melt it some more, staying with it in that stillness. So you got to stop,
Mm-hmm.
breathe, let that wave go through, and then the spaciousness. And then I did some writing. I went from that meditation into some writing. And I had, like, this has been a concept I've had, but I had a direct experience of co creating with life.
Mm-hmm.
As
Mm.
I was writing, I was allowing things, allowing the ideas, allowing the words to come.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my mind. It was just a very soft focus and allowing. And, and then I'll edit it, clean it up. But it requires this quality of emptiness and nakedness and permeability. Anyway, I don't know if that resonates for you. It sounds like you're in
Oh,
that
yeah. I
territory.
mean, the thing that comes up for me with what you're saying is like, how much compassion can I have for the conditioning? It's
Mm,
just part of nature, right? Like, I'm like, is the tree going to be hard on the tree for being a tree?
never.
Like, how much compassion can I muster up for this experience being a human? How much tolerance, and not only for me, but for other people. I found myself being so blaming and judgmental about people not doing what I thought was the right thing, right? Just like how I judge myself. Well, you're not doing the right thing. And so it's like, that's what, for me, that is what the softening is. How much can I muster up more compassion that this might just keep continuing? There'll always be more. There'll always be more you could lean into. That, and so it's like, and then using the spiritual realm, like you like trusting, we're inside of the mind of God. It's okay, right? Like that, it's okay for this to be the way that it is. And I it's it takes a lot to keep going back to that and being honest about it, and to have compassion for those loops and patterns and conditioning that is just still.
Sounds like
Yeah.
you're cultivating a pretty clear baseline of um, the way you are inside the web of life, the mind of God, the flow of the universe. It's not up to you to fix. It's just a participatory game, not a control game. And then when inevitably those tender places come up and are afraid, I'm not doing it right, or I'm not doing enough, or you know, the world's on fire, there's a shit show out there. taking that breath and softening and holding compassion for the limitations that you have, and then the conditioning you have.
Yeah, the limitations and the conditioning, and also just all of the sorrow and grief that's there. I mean, it's just, I think for me, that's like just like it's the real work. It's just being able to sit with that, all of that incredible sorrow
Tell me more
for,
about that.
well, I think for me it was like so many years, right? And you're passing down all of the sorrow, carrying it from years and years and years of ancestral sorrow that never got processed.
I see.
And you can't even process all of it. It's like you just have to be able, and like for me, I think when I realized that my anger was that, I had more compassion for the anger, right? Like it's just, there's just so much incredible sorrow for how the world is, for the fact that I'm not going to be able to fix things necessarily for my children, for all of the years that went by that I didn't know so much, and I made mistakes and I was harming people, or I just wasn't living, able to enjoy things, right? Like when you think about, oh, being a human, like the joy of our sexuality, the joy of our dance and song and our friendships, that I couldn't even enjoy for so long because there's so much sorrow there. And so coming into that and saying that, like, that it's okay to make time for joy, and to be disciplined also in our work to make time to serve and to be with our grief and do that together with people, feels like revolutionary, like it feels like, for me, it feels so exciting, like that, wow, we get to really feel what that feels like, the sorrow and the pleasure and joy, like, because that's what it's meant to feel like.
This wild dance of being human together.
Yeah, that it's just like there's so much goodness there. There's so much, and so much time that went by that we couldn't feel that. And it's hard to understand that, war causes that. You're not going to be in those places if you're in the middle of a war.
Yeah. So you're able to access more joy now, it sounds like. More beauty, more joy, more love.
Oh yeah. So much. And relationally, I think I have like, it's becoming unbelievable to me, actually. Unbelievable. Like hard to imagine that it could be possible, the profound joy that I could find in relationships for no reason, right? And how those relationships are changing, and how I can just not need to always have the next thing lined up.
Can you give an example of this unsurprising joy in particular relationship? Is there an example you feel comfortable sharing?
I think, yeah, I mean, even with my friendships and my marriage, I think there was a way in which I was looking for people to be something for me. And then I would find ways in which to fault you, even if it was just in my mind, and I wasn't necessarily going to share that with you, about how you weren't showing up for me. Family, friends, marriage. And that, so it was hard to be in those relationships because I was really looking for all the ways in which you were really the problem. And I just need to find a new thing, And now
I don't relate to that at all.
The joy is that, wow, I get to be, and those people haven't changed. I just see them in like all their glory, and
Mm,
I get to love them. I get to love them.
mm,
And I don't see, even with your children, it's easy, especially as a parent who wants to be able to raise kids that are healthy, to look at all the things that aren't right
mm.
so that you can make sure you fix all those things that aren't right and that they can eventually, and so that was not the way. That is absolutely, I feel like it's become very clear that I can just enjoy my
Mm,
children so much more with a new perception
mm,
that is able to sit with what is here.
mm. What
And
a
you see
gift.
yeah. So it's very exciting, but it also is challenging. It takes a lot of, it's you're not just, oh, I got what I want. You have to sit with it. It can be uncomfortable. It doesn't go away. I think that's the main point, is that it doesn't go away, that there's discomfort there
Mm.
at times.
But the discomfort doesn't mean that something's wrong,
Exactly.
and it doesn't mean that they're not glorious beings that your heart just wants to wrap up in love. And
Yeah, that there's something wrong in the relationship, that there's something wrong with them. Yeah. That was a big, big lesson for me.
well, then I imagine, because two people don't always agree, there's going to be negotiation. Tell me how, so there's more love and more acceptance of the glory of your children, your husband, your friends. But when there's differences, is there anything new about how you navigate differences?
Yeah, relating to it differently. Absolutely. I think I relate to it very differently. There's so much more respect,
Mm,
that people's brains work very differently than mine.
mm.
They have, just because someone's different doesn't mean that that actually is wrong. It sounds like, when I say that out loud, it sounds absurd, but I
I,
think
uh, I hear
that
you.
like, because me and my husband are very different, and it's taken us a long time. We always kind of knew that coming together in our ways would be helpful for us, but it's always been very easy to say, oh, well, my way is the right way, you should just come over to my way, and that wouldn't have created balance. And I think that's true for me with family and friends and even my children.
Mm,
That how do I see you, and this difference of the way that you're being, or the way that I think you should be, or even just disagreeing on how we should move forward. um that so much more respect, that a lot of times I was reacting from a very fearful place, and I was not seeing clearly at all.
mhm.
And that has been I have had very, very supportive people in my life. My husband is amazing, my friends are amazing, to be able to gently bring things to my attention with kindness and compassion, that help me to see, oh, I need to slow down when I'm viewing this, and I cannot jump to conclusions.
Yeah. So you're
And
more able to take their feedback in.
yeah, and I think it's just been I think when that happens enough times, that you say, wow, I really misunderstood that,
Mhm.
and I overreacted. I just totally actually didn't understand. The more that happens, if you're willing to see it, and willing to be receptive to that you can see, wow, that's a real pattern for me. I
And
was
then we're
not.
softening, and with that self-compassion that you're describing, then we can take that feedback in without collapsing into shame.
Mhm.
Right? It's like, good point. I hate to admit it, but you're right, and I'll work on that. But it's not this massive mm, condemnation of my whole nature.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. I think that there has been a shift for me to say, it's just not personal. Like I'm part of this universe. Like we're conditioned, and I don't have to take that personally. I can just say, oh wow, that happened. Would I be so judgmental about somebody else?
Mm.
Maybe not. If it was more objective, I would just be like, oh yeah, that happened. Okay. And I think for me, that has been to come out of that, like everything is so personal. And you realize what's on the other side of it is just enjoying life together with people. And I think that's what's been so profound for me. That's what the preciousness of it all is, right? That like that's what is so meaningful for me day in and day out. Just having these moments where you're learning together and you're, you know, able to be more lighthearted about these things. Not take it so seriously that you carry the burden of everybody.
I'm just sensing into the possibility, just extrapolating your way of being into community space where collectively we can do that, not take it so personally, have a fundamental respect and sense of the preciousness of life and the preciousness of this moment, and having curiosity that not knowing and being sensing in that sensing, right? That sensing in the moment and being open to what's arising. I feel like that's the only trustworthy place for creative responses to our crisis to come from. I
Oh
know that
yeah.
was a mouthful, but it just
Couldn't
seems
agree
that
more.
that just is, my take. But do you have a sense of that for how your way of being, just your way of being, before you even take action, how your
Mm-hmm.
way of being is a um, movement towards healing our collective and our trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, I think that softening into that space does feel like the most true space that you could possibly move from.
Mm.
And for me, the global crisis that we're seeing, is from a lack of going into the internal landscape and being with that, a lack of softening enough so that we can attune with the sacred. And so that is the way forward.
Mm.
Those are the answers because that is what has created the crises and the oppression, is the lack of spiritual, there's just so much. People were deprived of being, of that softening into ourselves. That's the only way we could do what's happening, the only way we could participate in that. So and that's fine, that meaning that, I mean, it's not fine, but that is what happened, right? There's been so much collective um, trauma that we haven't been able to sit there.
Yeah.
And we can have compassion for that, but I feel like that is the only way to meet it. And you don't know how that's going to look or how that will transform anything. You just know that we, as many people that can do that work and to build tolerance and have compassion, because I feel like those things come from that softening, will get us there.
Mm.
Hope. I have hope for that process.
Yeah, there's sort of this timing of the crisis crescendoing and then the timing of the awakening, it's like, stay tuned, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Oh,
to, yeah, and to not get activated by it, but to, and if we do, that's fine too, but just to soften around it.
yeah. Well, this has been a beautiful conversation. I love your blossoming and your wisdom, and I've experiencing the previous conversation that we had and here today, just your radiance, right? So you're um luminous in the generosity of the softness and the love that's possible and the respect and intimacy, right? The connection. Like you're so available for contact, and it's really quite beautiful. Very beautiful. Is there anything?
Thank you so much, Margit. It's
Oh,
been a pleasure.
yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say as we close?
I I just think this has been wonderful and lovely, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
All right. Bye
Yeah,
for now. Thank you.
thank you. Bye, Margit.
Um, I'm gonna stop the recording.